So this is our CINC community. What can I automate CINC communications webinar? This webinar for today is going to have a slight restructure from what we ran 2 weeks ago based on some feedback and kind of some of the other webinars that we're looking at rolling out in March. We're going to talk about the things you can automate on your site, which are going to be your AutoTracks and your behavioral messaging. We were talking about AI in this, and we can touch on it a little. We've just learned from feedback that the AI is so tailored to a team, plus it's a paid feature. So that we wanted to make sure this was everything that you could actually do and function with and run with. If you have AI questions, we can certainly hold those to the end, but we will, in March, we'll roll out an AI specific webinar and pull that out because it's so much more detailed that we can get into in this specific webinar today. So we'll talk about your AutoTracks and your behavioral messaging today. And then again, if you have AI questions, because it was originally marketed for AI, we'll cover that at the end, but it'll have its own webinar coming in March. So I'm just looking here at one of our training sites. This is going to be our CINC Pro training. It's going to operate and function like a live site that you guys have. So this is where we'll be playing with our webinar today to go through automations. The first one we're going to talk about is going to be AutoTracks, and then we'll talk about behavioral messaging. Before we jump in and show you what the features do, how to build them, we want to make sure that you are aware that these are permission-based features. So we want to look at our agents tab. If you're a broker, you can turn this permission on. If you're an agent with us, this will need to be turned on by your site owner or broker level user team lead within your office. But we'll go to agents. And we just want to make sure under your permissions that you have that auto track and behavioral messaging. That's going to allow you to see the auto tracks tab. It's going to allow you to create and edit your own auto tracks, as well as kind of activate on the platform. And then the behavioral messaging is going to give you access to those behavioral messaging features as well. If you don't have those permissions on, feel free to stay with us and see how awesome these features are. So you can go back to your site owner and be like, hey, I need this. It's awesome. But if you do have it, definitely feel free to follow along with us today so you can kind of activate some of this in your platform while we go through it. I'm going to navigate back to our leads page. And I have created a test lead here for our webinar today. So we have a good clean environment for our test. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the AutoTracks on a profile first, because there are 3 versions of AutoTracks. We have a sequence AutoTrack, a checklist AutoTrack, and a calendar AutoTrack. Just saying those names, it seems a lot of information that you're having to take on. What do all those mean? If we look at a lead profile, it's a little easier to understand what each of those AutoTrack types will serve, like what function they will serve. So once you have the AutoTrack permission, you'll see the AutoTrack tab. We're going to look right here. Your AutoTracks, just like our old drip campaign feature, can be automated, because that's the whole thing of today, right? By applying a label. Okay, kick off an AutoTrack, changing the pipeline stage, registering from a certain source. So there's a bunch of different triggers, and we'll get into those. For now, I'm just going to manually apply them so we can talk about the 3 different types of AutoTracks. So I'm going to hit manually apply. And I'm going to grab, the first I'll grab is the webinar calendar. It's going to be our calendar-based template. So I've just created a template here specifically for this webinar to walk through, and it is our calendar-based template. And what this is it's going to automate a series of texts, emails, and reminders, but you're going to see those apply to that lead profile and send those emails, text reminders out on specific calendar dates. So rather than picking and setting it to send day 1, day 14, day 7, you're not picking a sequence, you're picking a calendar. The one that we've built here is for holidays, and we have one built in there, the platform for you that you can copy that template. So you can see you're basically going to set automation to send certain messages on certain calendar dates. And then our example in here is going to be the holiday template. We've created one for US and Canada that includes all the major bank holidays in there. And you can go in and adjust these. Some adjustments I've seen is people don't like to send Mother's Day or Father's Day cards because you don't know the situation of the person receiving it. So that's something that you can do, but you're absolutely able to add or remove any of this content once you create it. But know that calendar is going to be our first type of AutoTrack, where you're sending automated text, emails, or reminders to the agent on specific calendar dates. At the end of our AutoTrack session, we'll show you a really special opportunity that you have with the calendar template to send out some automation around birth dates or purchase anniversaries. The next AutoTrack that we're going to talk about is going to be that CINC AutoTrack. And this is going to be, rather than setting automation for specific calendar dates, you're sending it for a specific sequence or order of events. So I know that I want a text to go out on day 1. I want a call reminder to the agent and an email to go on day 7. So you're basically setting your sequence. Another word I like to use is cadence. You're just kind of picking that standardized sequence of events and automating the text and emails to go out on specific days. It doesn't matter what the calendar date is. It just knows that, hey, 7 days after I start this AutoTrack, I want this communication to go out. And the last AutoTrack type we have is going to be our checklist type. This is going to allow you to standardize a set of tasks for your agents to follow up in a certain manner with that lead. This is kind of a recreation of an old feature on our platform called plans. And it's going to allow you to basically, like I said, create that checklist of tasks. You can see what your task is, how many days I have to complete that task, and I can come in and mark those completed. Typically, this will be used for like your contract to close, because you know, like, hey, these are the 10 steps that I need to take on a lead every time that I get them to the point where they're ready to buy a home, ready to sell a home. Or if you have certain follow-up after you have an appointment, that could be your tasks here as well. If you have certain action items that aren't necessarily texts or emails, just kind of internal tasks for yourself. So this will be an automated task list as well. So that's the calendar, the sequence, and the checklist type. So those are 3 types of AutoTracks. Before we move into the build out portion, Cayla, do we have any questions on the types of AutoTracks?
No, nothing on these 3 different types, Mike.
Perfect. Well, like I said, those can be automated. I manually applied them just to walk you through those. So now what we're going to do is we are going to flip over to our automations tab right here and our left-hand navigation menu. Click automations. And this is going to drop you into what we call your AutoTrack dashboard. It's where you're going to be able to see all of the AutoTracks that are active for yourself and on your platform and get some basic information about that. So I'm logged in as a broker user, and this is one of our test sites. So there's lots of information in here. You might not see this much information if you and your team haven't used or taken on the AutoTrack feature just yet. So feel free to follow along here versus in your platform if you're not seeing this data. At quick glance, I'll be able to see the total number of AutoTracks that I have available in my platform. These are the ones that, not the templates that CINC has created, but the ones that you and your team have actively kind of made your own. You'll see what's active and what's paused. And then you can kind of click in and group it by category, because you're going to be able to put these AutoTracks into different categories. So you know, like, hey, these are my listing specific AutoTracks, or these are my buyer specific AutoTracks. It's going to give you that opportunity to kind of categorize that internally just to keep everything nice and clean for you. As we move down and look at this field, we're going to be able to see the name of the AutoTrack. And if I click right here, this is going to open up my AutoTrack review field. It's going to give me an overview of what's in this AutoTrack, what are the triggers, who's it meant for, who can edit it. It's going to give you all of that good information, as well as a preview of what's being sent and when. If you click into each step, you'll also get a preview of what that email or that text message might be. So I'll see here, I can see the number of items, I can see how many reminders, how many emails, how many texts are included in this AutoTrack. I'll be able to see what, this is a calendar AutoTrack, so we know it's for the 2021 calendar year. It's set to send to everyone, so I don't really care if this is a buyer, a seller, a buyer, seller, a recruit, a partial. I don't care, it can go to anybody in there because it's a holiday campaign. You'll also see your time frame. So I know that, hey, this can only send communication between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. And it'll go Monday to Sunday. So I'm allowing weekends to be available as well. And then I haven't editable by any of the team members. It's considered private. So that's a quick glance of kind of what the AutoTrack is. It'll also give you an idea if it's private. So I'm logged in currently as Filter. So I know that this is a private campaign. I created it. And this means that it can only be applied by me to my leads. If we see one that's a public campaign, this means that it can be applied to anybody's leads, even though I'm the owner. This is something like a site owner would create a public auto track. That way, all of the team members have the ability to apply that to their leads without having to go in and create their own and do a lot of double work. Be able to see right here if it's active or paused. If I click that icon, I can go in and I can pause, disable, or delete. If I click here, it'll give me a drop-down menu and show me what leads are applied. This auto track is applied to, what that progress is, when it was assigned, what that open and click-through rates are for that lead. And then if I click on the lead profile, it's going to slide that right over so I can start kind of navigating around their platform. Maybe I have some reminders in here, or maybe I have a webinar task list or checklist that I need to go through. I can come through and mark my tasks complete, click on this, and then open up my next lead and kind of go through that same process. All right. Oh, not what I wanted to do. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and hit start, edit, and auto track. So what we're going to do is we're going to show you two options. We're going to show you the first is going to be how to create a copy of a CINC template or a template that is public on your platform that someone on your team has created. And then we're going to build one from scratch just so you kind of see what that blank template process looks like. So let's start edit auto track, and it's going to drop you into our auto track builder. It's got 4 steps. We really tried to simplify this build as much as possible. So as we go through and look, let's just grab, like I said, this is a demo site, so there's tons of samples in here to grab from. So I'm just going to come down here and let's do the buyer nurture uncontacted. So I'm just going to grab this campaign. If I want to, I can kind of see the sequence that's there. I can click into here to get a preview of those messages and say, okay, this is the one I like, and I can hit copy. Or if I review it and I don't like it, I can hit browse more templates to look at a couple other options. But I'll hit copy this template. And the first thing I'll be able to do is I can come in and update the name. So we'll call this automation webinar copy. This is where I'll be able to choose that category. If I want it to be general, that's just, hey, I don't care who gets it. Buyer is buyer, listing is it's specific towards geared towards listing type leads, nurture or past client. This is just helping you categorize these and keep them clean in the database. It does not control the type of lead that can receive this. So if I mark it listing, this could still technically apply to a buyer lead. Okay, this is just internal categorization. The lead type field right here is how I'm going to determine who can receive this auto track. So if I check everyone, that's any lead type that registers on my platform. If I only check sellers, only sellers are eligible to receive this. Even if I have an automatic trigger, such as applying a label. If I apply that label to a buyer lead, I couldn't trigger the campaign because it's only targeted to sellers, okay? So we'll just make this a buyer campaign. I'm also able to adjust my communication time frame. So we send auto track communication between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. or 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. It kind of determines what you want your standard business hours to be. This is something really to pay close attention to if you're with a team. You know, some of your agents are not going to want to send texts or emails, you know, after 5 p.m. They know that, hey, I've logged off for the day. I'm with my family. This is family time. I don't want to set the precedent that I'm available, you know, at 7:30 p.m. at night when I'm typically eating dinner with my family. So you can adjust that to 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. But that's an opportunity that you have to kind of control that communication window. I can also choose to skip the holidays if I don't want holidays included. And then if I don't want to send communication on the weekends, I can do that as well. You'll notice this step right here is trying to send it at 7 a.m. I can't do that. So what I need to do is come in and edit this step. Anytime that you kind of knock yourself out of compliance or out of rules for your auto track, we'll highlight it and say, hey, this is an issue. So you can go in and make that adjustment. So like right here, trying to send it in, can't do that. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to scroll down and I'll just update that time frame and then I can update. Okay. Now let's say that you want to add some of your own content in here. Let's go ahead and we can hit add a step. I can do add an email. And I can, I can free type the email here, or I can, free type it in this field, or I can choose a template that I've created in the platform to have that automatically pull in. All right. And I can choose to send after the previous step is completed, or I can send at specific time. So it just depends on what your preference is, how quickly and what that kind of sequence is that you want to send out. Now let's say that I want to add an additional day. I know that, hey, this campaign only runs for 20 days, but I'd really like to extend this out for, a full 6 months. How do I add new days in here? What I can do is I can hit add new day. When you hit add new day, it's going to immediately add it for the next day. So if I hit add new day, it's going to add day 21. I can adjust that later. So we'll show you that in just a moment, but I'm going to hit add new day. It's going to add day 21, and then I'm going to add my step. So we'll add a reminder. Reminder one. And excuse me, we'll choose to send it at a specific time. We'll just send this at 8 a.m. Me and Cayla are both in the mindset that we like all of our reminders to come at one time, typically in the morning. And the reason we like that is that way we know everything that we have to do today at the beginning of the day. We don't like receiving reminders at like 3:30 p.m. and be like, crap, I have something I have to do. I thought I was done for the day. So if you kind of standardize your reminder time, that's a great kind of best practice internally. Slightly off topic from AutoTracks, but figured I'd mention that while we're here. And I'll hit update. Once I've added steps to my new day, I can then click on the day dropdown and I can hit edit day. And this will allow me to go day 30. Day 35 and submit. Before we move on, I am going to add another step here. I'm going to add another reminder types that we can trigger within an auto track. So we're going to do add reminder. You can do a standard call, email, or other reminder, just like you can when you add a reminder directly on a lead profile. When I say you can add 2 types of reminders to an auto track, what I'm talking about is a standard reminder or a blocking reminder. So if I put a blocking reminder in here, what's going to happen is stops auto track until completed. One of these days I'll learn to type and talk at the same time, but until then, what I mean to say, I'll type out. If you have a blocking reminder, it's going to prevent the rest of your auto track from sending out any more reminders, any more emails or text messages until this step is marked completed by the agent. So if you have any reminders, texts, or emails that are contingent upon something that has to be completed in your office, you can set that as a blocking reminder, and it prevents any of that future communication from going out until the reminder is marked complete. Right. And you'll see that it's marked as a blocking reminder. It will also say on the profile in the auto track as well. So you know that, hey, this has to be completed for it to move on. So we'll just put that in the middle. And now I know, hey, day 13, day 20, and day 35 will not trigger unless this step is completed. Okay. Once you've gone in and made all of your adjustments to the auto track that you've copied, you can hit continue. And this is going to drop you into step 3, where you're adjusting the settings or the triggers for your auto track. And we have lots of options to kick these off. The first one is I can choose to kick off an auto track by applying a label. So you'll select label, it'll pull up your labels. And I've created a little label webinar here. So I'm going to go and add sequence auto track label. and apply. So now I know with the way this is set, if I apply sequence auto track to a lead, it'll automatically kick off the automation webinar copy auto track. Okay. You do have to create your labels first for it to appear in this field. So I can't create the label from directly within the auto track. I have to have it created first before I can select it as a trigger. I can trigger with a pipeline stage. So I can do attempted contact, contacted, appointment set, showing, under contract, or sold. So we'll just do this as attempted contact. I could trigger this based off registration of a landing page. If you're not familiar with landing pages, we don't cover that in this webinar, but you are able to search our help center for keyword landing pages, and it'll bring up several videos as well as some written content for you to review those. But essentially they're just a registration page where you're offering kind of teaser content. You're offering like, what do I need to know before I buy? And you just offer steps 1 and 2, but you have 10 steps. You can say, register for steps 3 through 10, and then they register, and then they get all of that follow-up registered content. Very brief explanation of what a landing page is, but know that, hey, if someone registers on a specific landing page, I can kick off a auto track. So most of the time that will be something like, what do first-time home buyers need to know? When a lead registers, you can kick off a follow-up campaign that's sending them automated communication on what first-time home buyers need to know in your opinion. You can send them emails and text messages and reminders, but that way you can kind of tailor what that follow-up is versus just generic follow-up. I can also trigger off of a custom field. I'm going to come back to this one later. It's a little complicated, just to explain when you're going through the rest of it. So I'll show you a better example of the custom field when we come back and do that birthday or purchase anniversary auto track here in just a moment. And then I can trigger for specific sources. So I can do Zillow, I can do recruit, I can do referral. So you can trigger off multiple sources. And what I'll do is, these are going to be or, and this will be and. So if I have a source in here, it's going to be when I apply a label and the source is recruit, referral, or Zillow, this will apply. If I add a sequence auto track label and it's not one of these sources, it will not kick off the campaign. Okay. We are also able to stop auto tracks with various triggers. So if I add another label here, I can do the checklist auto track. Let's just say that that's the label I'm going to use. I'll apply, and I know that, hey, if I apply sequence, it starts. If I apply checklist, it ends. I can do a pipeline. So this is a really good one if you have an auto track that's geared towards like long-term nurture or following up with somebody that you haven't been able to get in touch with before. You might kick that off on attempted contact because you've made at least one outbound attempt in the platform, couldn't get connected. You kicked off your follow-up auto track, but you know the purpose of that auto track is to get in contact with that lead. Well, if you have that a conversation with that lead on the phone, or the lead replies to the track and you kind of open that line of communication, move them to contacted, that auto track serves its purpose. So stopping that on contact is a really good opportunity for you. And then I can also choose to stop when a lead replies or when a lead reaches out. So if a lead replies to an email in an auto track, or a lead is sending an incoming text to your CINC number, it will stop the auto track as well. And lastly, for my triggers, I can do a couple things when the auto track completes. I can take no further action, meaning, hey, this auto track is done, nothing else happens in the platform. I can choose to automatically start another auto track. So if maybe I have a short-term nurture that runs for 60 days, auto track, and then I can have that tie into a long-term nurture auto track afterwards without having to, worry about, did that auto track, did I apply the right trigger? Did I do this or that correctly? You can kind of go ahead and daisy chain them together. You do have to create all of your auto tracks that you want to be in that chain first. So I can check automatically start another auto track. It'll pull up all of the auto tracks that I've built in the platform, and I can choose which one that I want to kick off next. This is most often used with the holiday template. So you'll build the calendar-based templates for specific calendar years, so 2021, 2022, rather than December having to do a mad scramble to build out my 2022 holiday or my 2022 calendar campaigns. I can build them all now, just kind of take an admin day, build all of those auto tracks, and then kind of link those together for the next 5 or 6 years. Or I can choose to automatically restart an auto track. Maybe this is a buyer bad phone number auto track, and I can choose to automatically restart that. So they're going to continue to get emails until they update their phone number and provide a valid phone for myself. Okay. Just because I don't want a bunch of this firing off on our test account, I am removing all of these before I save. You'll leave yours active if you want triggers in there. Looking at permissions, if I don't check this box, this is going to create this auto track as a private auto track only applicable to my leads. If I allow team members to access this, a couple things happen. They can apply this auto track to their leads, and then they can also make copies of it. If they want to adjust the content, personalize that auto track, they can make their own copy. You can also give someone the ability to edit an auto track. Maybe I'm an admin on the call today and I'm creating content for other agents on the team. I can give them the ability to edit it after I've gone through and created it, or I can transfer ownership. If I transfer ownership, once I hit save, I will lose access to this auto track and I won't be able to go in and make changes to it because I'm no longer the owner. I'm just going to hit save settings. Once you save, it'll drop you into step 4 where you're able to go through and review and finalize all of the steps. I'll know like, hey, who's it for? If I have any triggers listed, they will be listed here as well. And then I'll also know if it's editable, private, or public. And then I'll see all of the steps that I've created here. I'll hit save and exit. And I can do a couple things. If I hit publish this auto track, it's going to be active. And if there are triggers in place, those triggers become immediately effective. So on a go forward basis, those triggers will take effect. Right. If I exit the wizard, it'll activate it, but come across as paused. So that way I have to take that additional step of setting it active. If I exit wizard, comes across as paused, those triggers don't take effect yet. It's just like, hey, I want to save where I'm at, but I don't want to publish it just yet. And then I can choose to make another auto track. If I do make another auto track, that also publishes the current one as paused, but allows me to go ahead and create additional content. So that way I don't have to jump back and forth between this editor page. So I'm going to go ahead and publish the auto track. And we can see that it shows right here in my list. It's private and it's mine. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to walk through and show you a blank option and build that out. So I'm going to go through and hit start edit auto track. And I'm just going to hit blank templates to quickly snap to my blank options here. I can do a calendar, a blank template, or a checklist. I'm going to do the calendar since the one that I copied was a sequence type, just so you kind of see the slight variations of the step 2. So click blank calendar. We're going to copy. I'm going to click in here and just give this a name so I can find it later. Automations, webinar. And this is where I'll be able to choose the calendar years. So we can go right now all the way to 2025. This will kind of be a rolling 5-year period in this drop down. But we'll just say that this is for 2021. And then I can come in and start adding my steps. Let's do an email. So the first part of this page is going to be very standardized, just like the sequence option here. You're getting your subject, and you can free type your subject in the body of your message, or you can use a template. When we get down to setting the schedule is where you really see the variations on a calendar template. You're able to come in and select a pre-selected holiday. You can choose a very specific date on a calendar. Or if your team utilizes custom fields, you can trigger on a custom field. This is what we'll get into in a little later in the webinar on how to utilize the birthday option or purchase anniversary. but know that you are able to create those. If you don't know what custom fields are, we'll get there when we go over that session. But just know here I'm able to select the specific calendar date or a specific holiday that we've already kind of pre-built that date for you. You'll choose your time, and then if you'd like, you can send like Valentine's Day. I can choose to send information here as well. So you just click your holiday if you want to send it on a holiday, or choose your date. Update. And then for the calendar, you're not picking different days. Again, you're like day 1, day 7, day 14. You're selecting specific calendar dates. So you'll continue to come in, choose your templates, pick your calendar date, kind of go through and build that out there as well. So you can add as many steps in there. But the most common one that we've seen is going to be that holiday template that we've built for you, or the purchase anniversary that we'll cover here in just a moment. All right, the triggers are the same, the stop triggers are the same, and this option here is the same. Permissions are the same when you're building a blank one. All right, you'll get your preview. You can save and exit. Just gonna exit this wizard. I don't want to make this one public just yet. All right. Before we jump into the birth date, purchase anniversary, kind of custom field triggers, Cayla, do you have any questions for me?
Sorry, couldn't find my mouse to unmute. I do have one that I believe Jill asked a little earlier. So when you're on the dashboard here, she was asking if you could show again how you slide it over to open the lead info.
Absolutely. And I'm actually going to do this on the checklist option, because this is my favorite way to work the checklist type of AutoTrack. So we're going to look at that checklist type. Remember, that's just a series of tasks. Because those tasks aren't true reminders, they're not pulling into your F filters, they're not pulling into your reminder notifications. So I like to work my checklists from the AutoTrack dashboard. So if we open this up, we'll click on the leads. And then we will see the lead profiles here. I can click on the lead. It'll slide that over. So then I can come in and kind of look at this profile, make any adjustments I need. I can close it and then open up my next profile here. Okay. Looks like I have just a little bit of lag time on my internet, so it's not loading, but you'll see here that checklist loads. I can mark as complete, and now I can close, move on to that next person. So if I'm utilizing the checklist feature, this is where we really see the easiest option to kind of work and see those on a regular basis without having to kind of remember to look at the lead profile. Come here and see what tasks that you need to complete. Okay.
Awesome. That was the only one that I have for you. So you are free to move on.
Awesome. So I've mentioned it several times throughout the webinar. I know we are now going to look at our birth date custom field purchase anniversary type triggers and how you can leverage that to send out automated reminders, texts, or emails about a birth date, a purchase anniversary, a wedding anniversary, whatever that information is that your team is reaching out on annually. It's nice to automate that for you. So the first thing we want to do is, because these are going to trigger off of the use of a custom field, we want to make sure that you know how to get those added. This is something that your broker site owner level users are going to add to a site. And that custom field is basically tracking anything that CINC doesn't have a field for. So if I navigate back to our leads page and I click on a lead profile and navigate to that info tab, you'll see all of this key info. We have fields already created for this. We already have fields created for time frame to buy, last login, what their address is, but we don't have a birth date field or a purchase anniversary or a pet name. You know, we don't have any of this information in here. So you're able to kind of create that on the platform. Once the site owner creates that custom field, it applies to all of the leads on the site and gives you an opportunity to fill that information in. So I'm going to go to our settings. And then I'm going to click on custom fields. And this is where the site owner broker level users are going to be able to add those additional fields in here. So you can give it a field name. And we have 4 types of custom fields. We have a text type, which is a free type entry. Maybe you're doing pet names or kids names, you know, information that's nice to know on the profile, but not immediately relevant to every conversation you have. You can do text. You can do numbers. So this could be like purchase price, you know, maybe what they're pre-qualified for, that kind of information. Date is going to be birth dates, purchase anniversaries, very specific calendar dates, and then true false will be kind of yes no answers. Date-based custom fields are the only ones that we can use and leverage within an AutoTrack for triggers and kind of sending those reminders, emails, and texts. So know that if you're creating these, it'll have to be that date-based field. All right. Once the field has been added, that will populate onto that lead profile under the info tab in the bottom of the custom. Now what we can do is have AutoTracks trigger whenever we fill these fields out. Okay. So I want to go in and I'm going to look at my automations tab again. I'm going to navigate back to my automation so we can start looking at some of those AutoTracks. I have gone ahead and created kind of 2 back-to-back for us so we don't have to go through the entire build out. What's really important here is the triggering options. The content is something that you can self-create on your side. So I kind of simplified the content creation side of this for us for our webinar today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click this edit icon right here. And anytime you edit an AutoTrack, it kind of pauses and freezes that communication. Any current lead that has an AutoTrack applied will kind of pause where it's at and then pick back up once you've made your changes and kind of reactivated that. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this while I edit. Yes, pause and edit. We can see my 3 steps here. It doesn't matter what I name it, what category, what the lead type. It does matter the year because it needs to know kind of what date to send that on specifically during that year. And then you can start adding in your steps. So I have an email and a text and a call reminder in here already, but I'm going to go ahead and add another step so we can show you a couple things. So we'll go in and add reminder. We're going to do this as birthday call reminder. And rather than picking a specific holiday that we've built or a specific date, we're going to choose to trigger off of a custom field of birth date. Again, you can choose any of those date-based fields that you have, but for this example, I'm going to choose birthday. So now what happens when this AutoTrack triggers, it knows like, hey, I'm supposed to send this reminder on whatever that date is in that custom field on the lead profile. So I'm going to hit update. Oop. And here's where I mentioned earlier, if you kind of do something that's not correct or you haven't filled everything out or it's outside of the right time frame, it'll highlight in red and call you out. I didn't fill this out, so we'll just go fill that out quickly, and then we'll hit update. All right, and you can kind of do that for every custom field in there as you want. Maybe you want a birth date and a purchase anniversary all in one versus 2 separate AutoTracks. I could come in and add additional steps and kind of trigger that off of, you know, purchase anniversary as well. I would probably keep them separate rather than having a birthday purchase anniversary combo, especially if purchase anniversary doesn't apply to every lead, but birthdays do apply to every lead. So I would probably leave those separate, but you do have the ability to kind of trigger off multiple custom fields within a profile or within AutoTrack, excuse me. Once I've gone and I've added whether I want that to be an email, a text message, or a reminder on that specific custom field date, I can hit continue. And I want to do 2 things when I'm creating a birth date custom or a birth date or a purchase anniversary AutoTrack. The first thing I want to do is actually select the custom field. So I'm going to do custom field as the trigger, and then I'm going to do birthday. What that means is from the moment I save this auto track, publish it, it's active. If I add a new birth date into a lead profile, that will trigger the auto track to fire and send out at the appropriate time. It will not retroactively kick off and kind of notify birth dates for anyone who's already in the platform and already has that field filled out. So we want to trigger off the custom field for new leads or leads that you have new birth date information for. And then for anyone that's already in your database, if you're already using a purchase anniversary or a birth date field, you'll want to kick those off with a label. So I've created a label called birthday auto track and apply. So now what this allows me to do is apply the label to any lead that already has that birth date field, that birth date custom field filled out for anyone that's already there. And then I can add that birth date information into the custom field to kick off for any new lead going forward, okay? Label covers old leads that already have the info. Custom field covers new leads that don't have the info already. And this is where because it's a calendar template, you are locked into just your calendar year. So you will need to create a birth date for next year, a birth date for the year after. And that's where I can start going in and daisy chaining them together. I've already created my webinar birthday custom field too. And now I know as soon as the webinar 1 birthday custom field auto track ends, it's going to pick up my webinar 2 birthday custom field. So that way I can notify them on next year's birthday as well. All right, and we can save and exit, and I can choose to publish that auto track. All right. So again, if you are daisy chaining auto tracks together, you need to create them all first, and then you can kind of go back in and choose to kick them off in sequential order that way. Do we have any questions on the birth date custom fields or auto tracks in general, Cayla?
Just where to input the dates for those custom fields.
Absolutely. So once they're created, again, that's from a site owner broker level user permission to create. I'll find the lead that I need to kick this off on. Let's say I had a great conversation with Automation's webinar test and I got their birth date information or their purchase anniversary. I can come in and say their birthday is going to be April. They were born in. Okay. So you'll put their birth date in, and when you submit, that field is filled out. When I refresh, that custom field is filled out, and yay, my birthday custom field fired off, and it's sending on specific dates. All right, so we can see that, hey, this is going to send that email for the birth date on the 7th at 8 a.m., my call reminder, etc. So that's awesome that that trick kicked off. You're able to see that once I created that custom trigger, I can fill that out and it automatically applies that auto track based on their birth date, notifying them at the right time.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. One follow-up to that. Can you speak to how to add those different fields into the custom field section so they can start tracking different dates?
Absolutely. So this is going to be something that'll happen from the settings. So it's going to be a site owner broker level user permission to get added. So we'll go settings. And within the settings dropdown, you'll have custom fields. And then you'll be able to hit add new field. I'm naming the field date only for auto tracks because just as a reminder, only the date-based custom fields can trigger a campaign or excuse me, trigger an auto track. All right. So you'll choose the date You'll add field. Once that's added, it now applies to every lead on the profile. That field now lives under the lead profile within that info tab. And once you fill out that information in the field, if it's a trigger, we'll then kick off that auto track campaign. Come on.
That we're all caught up on questions now, Mike. Thank you for showing that.
Awesome. Well, that's a great segue because my leads dashboard is loading slow. The next topic that we're covering on today's webinar is behavioral messaging. Just in case you joined us late, behavioral messaging like AutoTracks is a permission-based feature for you to access. So quickly, we'll show you the Agents tab again. This is something that your broker level users, site owners will need to enable for you. And you do edit permissions, and you'll have AutoTracks and behavioral messaging. Behavioral messaging will also live within your automations tab. We're going to look at AutoTracks is where we just were, so we're going to come down to that second option for behavioral messaging. So behavioral messaging is a series of automated texts and emails that are based on the lead behaviors in the platform. So we're going to send them an automated text. If we can't text, we'll default to email. Whenever they perform a certain behavior on a site. So if the lead logs in and submits a property inquiry, you can have an automated text message go out. If a lead opens an email after 30 days of inactivity, you can have a text message go out. So you're proactively engaging that person via text based on their behavior and their activity on the platform, rather than you're utilizing your P&F filters for prospecting and follow-up, making those daily dials during your prospect time. Outside of that, there's so much activity happening on your platform. It's hard to keep track of it all. Out the people that you're prospecting, the people that you're already following up with, on top of all of your showings and closings that you guys are working through. So allow the system to automate some of this and work for you and engage those leads based on when they're active in the platform. And that's where behavioral messaging really comes to play, is just trying to engage them proactively and kind of remove some of that legwork from the agent side. Now, there are certain behaviors that you, the agents, can take to kind of increase behavioral messaging on the platform. We'll cover that in just a moment. But know that for now, automated behavioral messaging or text and email communications sent to the leads when they perform specific behaviors. Now, this is an automated text, and we know that if we get the same automated text back to back to back to back, we know that, hey, this is not human. This is automated. This is a machine of some kind. So what we do to try to prevent any of that, hey, are you a robot kind of communication, we're only sending one behavioral message per day, regardless of how many behaviors they perform. And then we're only sending one of each type every 2 weeks. So what I mean is, if I log into your platform today and I submit a property inquiry, I'll get a text. And then if I view the same property 3 times in 5 days, I won't get this text message because I've already received the property inquiry one. Now, let's say 3 days from now, I log back in and submit another property inquiry. I'm not going to get this text message because I've already gotten it in a 2-week period. But let's say I log in 15 days from now. That's outside of that 2-week window. And then I submit another property inquiry. I'm now eligible to receive that text again. So we space that communication out, and then we only send one per day to make it feel more human from the agent. And it's also not immediate. There's a little bit of a delay built in. So it's not like I submitted a property inquiry and then bam, I get a text message. We want this to feel very human and even though it's automated, it needs to feel human from you guys. Once you have the permission active, you'll be able to come in and choose the behaviors that you would like to send those text messages on. So if I don't want a behavior, I'll turn it off to be gray. If I want it on, it'll be on to be blue. These top 8 behaviors that you see here are going to trigger for your new leads and your attempted contact leads. So leads in the new lead and attempted contact stage of the pipeline are eligible to receive the top 8 behaviors. The goal of these behaviors are opening that line of communication, trying to get the lead to reply and engage with you as their agent. These last two behaviors that we have available are going to apply. The first one to leads the sold pipeline stage. So once you've closed somebody and you move them to sold in your platform, if you don't have behavioral messaging on, you just hope to notice that they log back in, or you hope they reach out to you if they start their home search again. But what you can do here is if a lead is in the sold pipeline stage and returns to the site after a year or more, you can automatically engage them. So that way, as soon as they come back, you're like, hey, wanted to see how your home search is going. Notice you're coming back to the site. You can kind of engage them, open that line of communication, and kind of hop on that past client pretty quickly. The next one is going to be for leads in the contacted pipeline stage. So if you move someone to contacted, and then they just appear on you, they stop engaging, they stop logging in, they kind of go away. After 30 days, if you haven't added any new call notes, if you haven't proactively tried to communicate with this person via call notes, you haven't set any appointments on that lead, what we'll do is we'll send a text to that lead, trying to re-engage them and pull them back to the site, kind of revive that lead, bring them back to life. Right. So those are our behavioral messages. And once you have these on, these are determining, okay, if this is on, this behavioral text will go out if that lead performs that specific behavior. You have the opportunity to be notified a couple different ways that this is happening. So I'm going to toggle to our profile and settings. And I want to look at our notification settings. I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to look at our behavioral messaging alerts. And I can choose to toggle on email or text message alerts for those behaviors. So I'm choosing how I want to be notified that these behaviors happened and that text message went out. There are two schools of thought on that. Some agents like to know that, hey, I had a lead that viewed any property 10 times in 7 days. I want to know that behavior was performed and that message went out. Other teams don't care to be notified. Because what'll happen, lead replies to that text message, you're now engaged via text automatically, so that inbound text is kind of serves as your notification. So it just depends on if you want to proactively step into that conversation before the lead replies, turn the alert on. If you don't care about until the lead replies engaged with you, leave the behavioral message off. It just depends on kind of how proactive you want to be with that lead. If you want to go ahead and let the system be as proactive as it is with the behavioral messaging, or if you want to take additional steps, maybe you see that someone submitted a property inquiry and then you make an outbound phone call, or they've opened an email or come back to the site after 30 days and you don't want to wait on the lead reply, turn the notification on and proactively reach out before that lead replies via text. Okay. Cayla, any questions on behavioral?
No, nothing for behavioral. You're all good.
Awesome. Do we have any other questions for open Q&A?
We only have one, and it is if someone has Skype, for example, or some other kind of calling app or tool, can you show if you click the lead's phone number, how it kind of prompts you to use those third-party dialers essentially?
Absolutely. So I've just opened up a profile, and what this question is asking about is if you have a program like Google Voice, Skype, FaceTime, you're able to leverage those third-party apps, dials through the CINC platform without having to pay for the dialer or using the mobile app to make those dials. So what'll happen is if I click on the phone number and click call lead, or if I click on this phone icon, that will try to queue up this phone call into that third-party app. So I'm on a Mac right now, which uses FaceTime. So zoomed in. If I hit the call option, you can see it's going to try to switch over to a FaceTime call and send this phone number to FaceTime, where I can now use that third-party app. I don't know. What I don't know about this is how to determine which app gets opened. I know the default app on a MacBook is FaceTime. I believe like default apps on most PCs are going to be Skype.
Yeah, and I think it just depends on which you are using. Like if you have set that app or program to be your default for calls, and it'll pull that up.
Yeah, so that'll be an internal setting on your computer itself to determine what that default application will be. But once you do that, you'll be able to click that call icon and use that third-party feature. It'll kind of pull up here, show you what those third parties are. Click that, it'll drop that phone number into that new third party.
Yeah, and it looks like maybe if you were to click FaceTime, here sharing, that maybe you can then go to preferences and you select it as default for calls.
Yeah, I don't know where.
So that's for someone who wanted to use FaceTime, or if you wanted to use something else, you would just need to, like I said before, make sure that it's set as your default. Skype was the service that someone used when they asked that question.
Yeah.
But no, that was the only, here we got, if I'm not seeing the settings option under agents on the left-hand side, does that mean I don't have access?
Yes, that is correct. If you don't see the settings, Cayla, and I used to think that this was for site owners and all broker level users. Can you confirm that? Do you know different? Because
I believe it is for site owners and broker account levels.
Okay. So if you don't see that, you're not the right user level to access that tab, because it's going to control not only like things like custom fields, but it will also control, you know, your website settings, some of your profile, adding dialer, billing, and invoicing type information. So this is locked down. If you don't see that, just know that if you want to leverage that custom field, birth date, purchase anniversary, you can speak with your site owner and they'll be able to get that added. If they don't know how to do it, they can always reach out to our support team. They're super helpful and fabulous at getting, you know, that stuff done. Or if you're more self-service, you can go to our help center and search custom field, and there's a great walkthrough there as well.
And then Dave gave us a perfect segue, because we're at an hour. He asked where to get access to this recording and the other sessions that he may have missed.
Awesome. So we promised that he's not a plant. There was not a segue plant there. You will receive an email at the end of the week that will have a recording of this webinar as well as every webinar that we ran this week. That way, if you're not able to attend or didn't know about some of them, you have full access to everything that we provided for you this week in a live format. You can also visit cincommunity.com/webinars. And this will drop you into our live webinar page where you can click to register for future events, or you can jump to the recording gallery.
And I actually just added that button today.
Oh, look at that. You can jump down here and see the, you know, we've broken it out based on what it's for. So whether that's scripting and role play, whether that's an AI, you know, webinars focused on site owners, you'll have full access to everything we've recorded here. But you'll also receive an email with today's recording at the end of the week.
So that email that will go out tomorrow will have just the recordings from this week. But if you want to watch additional recordings, those will also be here in those playlists that Mike is showing. So this is especially good if you need a refresher on some topics, or if you are a site owner or a team lead and you have a new agent that's joining your team, then that's also a great resource. So they have just a lot of recordings at their disposal that they can watch kind of on their own time.
Awesome. Well, if there are no more questions, I just want to leave you guys with a big thank you for attending today. The questions that we had were great. I hope you guys walk away with some good, impactful information that you can take and implement into your databases. We will be back next month with these same webinars, and I think we're going to add 1 or 2 additional in there for March as well. So keep an eye out for all of our webinar offerings coming in March. So thank you guys so much. We will see you on our next webinar.
Bye, everybody.